3 years with a literary agent, sending it out to finally get a publisher to take a chance on me. So this is actually an old story of mine, but like I mentioned, finally got this released on the 31st of March. So here I am. Yeah. Any questions?
What was the biggest challenge you had when you were actually writing the book? What was your biggest challenge?
You know what? I would say staying organized with my characters. You know, I have all these ideas. You know, even I wanted to make sure that with this book, the reader can read it and imagine what the character looks like and smells like in their own. You know, I wanted a story that wasn't really followed race or, you know, even down to height and hair texture. But so when I'm writing some certain scenes where, you know, maybe you're touching a patch of hair, or, you know, I had to keep everything in alignment. And I think that was very hard because it's a pretty lengthy book. And, you know, looking at the first chapter to maybe mid or end of the book, making sure that everything aligned. So there was a lot of editing, going back, making sure names didn't get mixed up, making sure height was still aligned, things like that. Yeah. But that's it. I think I'm gonna have more coming. Like I mentioned, this writing and reading, I can't say that it's a passion. I like to storytell. I don't know where this is gonna take me. I do see me writing a few other books along the lines of suspense and crime. I would say probably it's going to be less, this isn't really a gory book, but it's more of a whodunit and solving, problem solving. And it's my future books, I would say, are going to be aligned to that. So but that's what I have for you guys. Thank you for listening. And if anyone had questions, please feel free to ask.
Oh, I read the book. It was great. Did you have to do a lot of research for your characters?
I probably should have, but no. I sure did.
It was a great book. I read it.
You know, the funny thing, my ex-husband is from Colorado. So when I say I didn't do traditional research, but questions, there's some scenes in the book where they're at a golf course and, you know, just running things by people who would actually know. I'm like, hey, is this even a thing? And they're like, no, no one does that. You know, like little things like that, making sure that the location, I wanted this to be a completely fictional book. I didn't want people to be like, no, that's not what happens there, or that's not the weather there. I did choose Colorado because their weather is so bipolar, and this book kind of transitions into different seasons, but other than that, everything in the book is completely fictional. So.
Thank you.
And thanks for reading it, Chisa.
You're welcome.
But Mark, yeah, that's what I had.
Okay.
I'm curious about one thing. Can I ask a question? I know I'm on the panel, but I'm just curious. Was there any particular character, Danita, that you related to?
Ooh. You know what? I think a few of them took some aspects of my personality, as well as aspects of close individuals' personalities. I was really skeptical of naming. I changed the names of my characters probably a few different times. Because I feel like as I was writing and the passion was coming, they were going to relate too much to people in my life, and I didn't want to have to answer those questions later on, especially when a character would come up missing.
I love it.
That's good. Well, great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for letting me share. And again, it's Dissemblance. It is available. I'll just kind of throw in my plug though. It's available on Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, pretty much all the bookstores online. And then hopefully after things calm down into next year, I'll be doing a book signing here in the Phoenix, area. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys in person soon.
Yes, yes.
Could you put a link to, let's say, Amazon in the chat box?
I sure can. Yeah, I will get that in there.
Okay, perfect.
Definitely.
Tressa, would you like to go next?
Okay. So the name of my book is Finally Naked: An Almost 60-Year Journey to Self-Acceptance. And I am going to read the introduction of my book, and then I will go from there and start my talk. I have a degree in social work and forensic psychology, so needless to say, you're working on everybody else. It's really time to heal your own life. So it says, I've always loved to read and to write, but it was not until the summer of 2017 that I was introduced to three beautiful women who were connected to their purpose in life. Each in their own way pointed me in the direction of the light and nudged me to keep walking. I met Berhinda Williams at Transforming Love Community, who introduced me to Rayshawn Foster, who introduced me to Amani Williams, an administrator for Writers Black Art Connected group. Imani listened when I said someday I wanted to write a book. She suggested I join the group, and as we say, the rest is history. I had no idea that poetry would lead me back to myself, but it did in an epiphany-style awakening. As I look over my poetry, something I do from time to time, I see my writings were a diary of my evolution that came to me in masterful ways. I was often meeting aspects of myself that only my psyche could receive in this manner. I had to be open and become non-attached to the outcome of how my prayers were answered. I remember praying really hard and long while crying for freedom, even when I had no clue what it was and how it would show up or the price it would cost me. Being aware of the role poetry has played in my life in the course of 3 years is fascinating as I observe my journey to self-acceptance. My journey to self-acceptance has been an adventure to say the least, but not always fun and often downright painful. The poetry in this book was chosen because it gives me clues that led me back to my center, a center that had been obliterated through trauma and pain starting very early in my life. I was distracted and disconnected from my own mind, soul, and body. My emotions were tattered. It was my soul that held the broken pieces and the answers and the questions. The poems return the pieces of myself to their rightful place in the most gentle and loving way possible. I had to lean into my process and let it flow. It is my prayer that you will find this true as well. My writings are not written in any kind of order other than categories. Okay, so when I decided to write this book, in 2016, I went through a women's rites of passage. There was a 6-month program, and then after that, there was a ceremony. And so I did a lot of healing through that ceremony, through that process. Even at one point, I started going back to therapy because I started to feel some depression. And then I met these 3 young ladies. I started writing poetry. I started living my life. Now, during that process, I felt like I had done a lot of healing, and I thought, oh, wow, I'm really on my way. And about a year later, I started finding that what really had happened is I had committed to my healing, but I still had a long way to go. And so as different things continued to come up, as I joined the writing group, I started to find that as I look back about a year later, I started to look over my poetry, and I saw that in ways that I had started to heal myself through writing poetry. And so I decided to write the book. I did self-publish the book, and I am in process of writing another book. I've done a book called Empowerpreneurs, but it was an anthology with 10 other women, or 9 other women and a gentleman. And so that's kind of my history. I had a traumatic childhood, very traumatic. My first experience with a man, I was 2 weeks from my 11th birthday, and my stepfather touched me in ways he should not. And then from there, I've had other experiences with men that was very inappropriate. I had trauma, there was a lot of domestic violence, and then I married into some of that stuff. And so for many years, that was kind of my story, but I wanted to heal my life, and I was on that path, but it just felt like sometimes the trauma was so hard and so heavy, it was just hard to get from under. And then I realized that through writing this book, like, oh, I was just like, really just, life for me was just shifting. But the book came about because I noticed it was through the poetry that I had already written. So I write better probably than I read, but I'm gonna give it a try. So I had 3 poems I picked out. And I would also like to say this too, probably when it came, because I'm 58, about to be 59 in January, with all the trauma, particularly the sexual trauma, it just kind of kept me pulled into myself, rather experiencing myself as a woman. So some of my poetry speaks of how I came out. And some of it, I won't make it too heavy, but if you get my book, you're gonna get some where there was spaces where there's a poem to the ancestors. There's a poem that was written about depression, where I asked depression to come in and have a seat. Tell me what you want me to know so I can heal. There's poems, I wrote a couple short stories because I love to write. Like I said, there's a lot of sexual stuff in here. But then there's also a poem about Black women. It's not all sexual, but I just want everybody to know that it has a lot of that in there, and then different things that we go through life. So I chose 3. Let's see. So here goes. My expression: wolf wild, intuition on fleek, third eye ready. Goddess dancing in rhythm with the moon, ocean swaying in her veins. Living out loud, dancing in color, unapologetic. Pussy popping swirls of essence, a worshipped woman with no walls, boundaries be damned. Let's see, there was another one that I wrote. I thought I put it in here. I'm sorry, ladies. I thought this one right here was, okay, well, maybe I'll go with this one because there was really one that I wanted to see. Dance. I dance to the music of the divine feminine. Seduction lies in my pelvis, gyrating in her language. Snake arising, teasing my senses, creating laughter, a symphony of beats that keep me alive. And one more. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I had already locked this one in. It was called, oh, I guess maybe I'm not supposed to read that one. I was looking for this one that I really did, that I really, really like. Okay, I'll just choose another one. Okay, this one is called Riding the Pole. I step to you as you stand in attention, hands on hips, legs wide, me looking and smiling from side to side. My hair big, denoting my glory. I look at you and say, it's time, let's tell our story. I think of riding you now, honoring your treasure. Damn, our experiences are too deep to measure, but I will try. Treasures of rubies, garnet stones, black diamonds, and jewelry untold. I feel so juicy standing relentlessly transparent as this poem unfolds. Flowing in my experiential DNA, all mixed up with my healthy ability to love and play. It is not always easy as I learned you. Soft and hard touches, long and soft brushes, hugs, legs open so right, legs shut oh so tight. Up I rode you and down again. I even gave you a twirl and a spin. You never betrayed me or let me down. You just stood at attention as I went round and round. I see you look at me as I look at that pole. Your stare tells me it all. Mouth open wide, I wink and whisper. Close it before a fly flies inside. You squint and move oh so slow. Before I know it, your hands are in the flow. I imagine you are reminded of how I ride this pole. I smile and think 2 sessions in one. I schooled your ass and calm you dead as you watch me tell my story of my pole dancing class. Oh, thank y'all. Like I said, I write better than I speak only because I'm getting courage now to start putting my poetry out there. But prior to this, I wrote it and didn't really, if that makes sense. So you all are getting graced with my poetry speaking. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, for sure. I see some open mics in your future.
Do you?
Yeah, have you been to Poetic Soul?
No,
Have you thought about it?
I did, but prior to this, like I said, this for me is stepping out. Like I have had an opportunity to do a couple of online book readings and then I would chicken out. And so I'll just put myself out there and I'm like, these beautiful women up here talking, like, yeah, I could squeeze in somewhere because, you know, but no, I haven't. So, but I will now.
Well, yeah, because they started, Q has started it back up. So, it's a weekly event that you can, you can go out there and I think they would love you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real nice environment. And having been there, not only would you fit in, but I think you would slay them,
Stand out.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love the little twist at the end of the poem. It
Oh,
was
thank
very,
you.
very good. Very good.
I think that, like you mentioned, the book was for healing and you had some traumatic sexual events at a young age, and a lot of people don't bounce back after that. And the fact that you turn that into the poems and the poetry, and not making, your sexuality be a bad thing, I think it's awesome. I can't wait to pick it up.
Thank you. Thank you. And Danita, I'm here in Arizona, so I invite you and Mark to please come and support me when I go out.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Is there a website or where can we get your book?
So I do have a website because I also have a business called Bohemian Goddess, but I don't have any books at home. So the best place to be right now to get it, is Amazon. Otherwise, I would sign everybody's book and send it out.
Can you put the link in the chat?
I sure will.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Tressa?
Keep writing.
Thank you.
Definitely keep writing.
Thank you. I do have a new book coming out. It's not a traditional book. I'm a blogger. And so I have a blog that's called, it's called Pussy, but it stands for Pulsating Unadulterated Sacred Sensual Yearnings. And it's really about women living their authentic self, using their authentic voice. And so I am about to write a book, and it's based off by the blogs of a pussy writer, the thoughts of a pussy writer, pussy blogger, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Okay.
Jiwa, I think you're next.
Oh, I am?
Tanya wants to go last, so that's why.
Oh, okay. I'm Dr. Jiwa Lee, and I wrote a book on the human heart called Core Perfectum. What you don't know about your heart may be killing your life. And I started this book, it actually started as a lecture. Back in 2012, I did a lecture at a conference in Las Vegas. It was a conference for Circles of Light Ministries. And I'm trained as a chiropractor. And so I studied physiology, anatomy. We even dissected cadavers. I took cardiophysiology, but after, having a discussion, I realized I didn't have a really deep knowledge about the heart and what it really does on all levels. And so I took it upon myself to do this lecture at the conference, and that's a true way of forcing myself and learning the material, and just getting a deeper understanding about the heart itself and all that it does. And so in 2012, I finished the lecture, but in 2018, I finished my book. It took me 6 years to finish the book. Reason being is because I was intimidated by the material. I wasn't talking about the heart from a usual anatomical medical perspective. I was speaking about the heart from an energetic perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, from a sacred geometry perspective. So the book covers a lot about the heart. So I go into the anatomy, physiology, embryology of the heart. I go into the sacred geometry, numerology, and metaphysics of the heart, and the ancient hermetic principles around energy. And so my premise is that heart disease is the #1 killer in the Western world because we don't really understand what the heart does or what the heart is. And the fact that we, as African Americans, are dying at a rate of 50%. 50% of people who are African American have heart disease over the age of 20. And I thought that was an outstanding, astonishing statistic. I mean, you're 20 years of age. Who at 20 years of age thinks that they have the symptoms of heart disease? But 48% in women, 47% in men who are African American have symptoms of heart disease beginning at age 20. And so when I started looking at what the heart did, you know, it's a electromagnetic field generator. It is a gland. It secretes hormones, oxytocin, and another one that has a name that I always mispronounce, so I'm not going to say it, but it regulates fluid retention in the body. It is the conductor of all the systems of the body. So the heart basically sends signals to the brain, and then the brain communicates to the rest of the body. So the brain is not running the show in our bodies. Our heart is. And the fact that it is diseased in half of the African American population, I thought was astounding and troubling, and a call for looking deeper than our physical circumstances as to why that is. We know all the things that we're supposed to be doing diet-wise and stress-wise and exercise-wise. However, I think the understanding of who we truly are, and how to tap into that has not been discussed on the level where it comes into the play of how we exist health-wise. So energetically, the heart is the intersection of spirit and matter. It's the 4th chakra. It's the middle chakra. So you have 3 chakras below, and chakras are energy centers or wheels of energy that originated in Egyptian mysticism and then went on to India. And the fact that it's the middle and the gateway to the higher realms. So we have the physical chakras, which are the root chakra, the sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra. And then you have the heart chakra right in the middle. And then above that, you have the throat chakra, third eye, and the crown chakra. Well, in order to access the spiritual or the unseen part of ourselves, which is the larger part of ourselves, you have to go through the heart. So we're living in a world of duality, seeking oneness. And the only way that we can get to oneness is through the heart. We're living in a world where we're relying on our senses, three-dimensional um, aspect of our lives is experienced through our five senses. But the only way to get to fifth dimensional consciousness, which is a higher consciousness where there's no space, no time, no thing, and we can really tap into our divinity, is through the fourth dimension, which is our heart. So we're living in three dimension through our five senses. We are aspiring to oneness, which is a fifth dimension, but we have to go through the fourth dimension, which is our heart, in order to reach that. And so understanding that we're energy, and what does that mean, I cover in the book. And I wanted to read an excerpt from the book. Chapter 3 is called Sacré-Cœur, which means sacred heart. And so I want to read from that. It says, "What makes the heart so special? The ancients had high regard for the heart. The sacred rituals of past civilizations centered on the heart. The ancient Egyptians believed the mind was in the heart, not in the brain, and treated it with reverence when mummifying a body. They threw away the brain and preserved the heart. Up until the 20th century, modern Western medicine considered it taboo to operate on or otherwise disturb with the heart in any way. It was grounds for professional shunning. When we point to identify ourselves, we do not point to our heads or our stomachs, but to our hearts. And when we pledge an oath of allegiance, we place our hands over our hearts. As kids, we cross our hearts and hope to die when declaring the truth. So, what makes the heart so special? We know about the mechanics of it. It helps regulate blood flow. It's a gland, it's a decision maker, but what makes it so special? To find this answer, we must look beyond the physical properties of the heart and examine its spiritual and energetic qualities. We are made of pure energy. The universe is made of energy, and everything, including us, is made of energy. Our bodies, our bones, organs, and tissues have an energetic footprint of subatomic origin. Through the ages, this energy has been called different names by different cultures. For example, chi in China and prana or vital force in India. Our limited sensory perception does not allow us to consciously experience all the subtle densities of this energy. For example, we can only hear a limited range of all the frequencies of sound possible. A whale sounds are too low a frequency for us to hear, and only a limited range of all the frequencies of light available. Gamma rays and X-rays are invisible to us. We can only consciously experience the range of energies we choose to experience. The ancient Egyptians regarded the source of all energy as a moon. A moon, the unseen, is everything and nothing at the same time. If you were to put all the creative source energy in one room, you would have nothing. Why? Because everything is present in the room and there's no reference point to compare. We know light because we have experienced dark. We know good because of its relation to bad. The best visual explanation of a moon and the energy of the universe was given to me during a lecture by Dr. Caroline Fuqua. If you look at a ceiling fan when it is at full speed, you cannot see the individual blades of the fan. They are moving so fast that they are unseen. As the fan blades slow down to a stop, we are able to see the blades more easily. A moon is like those fast-moving blades. Its energy is moving so fast that we cannot see it. as this energy slows down, we are able to see the denser forms of energy that do not appear to move. They appear solid. However, this is an illusion. Solid things are in constant motion and are vibrating all the time. And so I go on to talk about how we are a range of energy. You know, we are vibrating at different frequencies, and the part of us that we can see and experience is the denser part, the slower moving part. But we have a part of us that moves so fast that you can't even see it. And so relating to both of those aspects of ourselves, the seen and unseen, is important in creating a healthy environment for your heart. Because right now it's so physical heavy that it's not in balance. And so developing a relationship with the unseen part of ourselves, the divine part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that is closer in frequency to source energy, would lead to a healthier heart. So that's my premise. That's my book in a nutshell. And I thank you for listening.
Well, I got questions. And thank you. That was really good. So, so a couple questions. At the end, you spoke to what's necessary for a healthy heart. So, could you elaborate on that a little bit more? I mean, particularly, you know, in ways that we can actually walk away with, you know, a to-do list, if you will.
Okay. So energy is, emotions is basically energy in motion. And so choosing and being really vigilant about how you are emoting, I guess is key. So we are really particular about our personal hygiene. We get up every morning, I guess most of us do, and take a shower and brush our teeth and do all those necessary things. But how often do we think about our energetic hygiene? How are we holding our energy? Are we high vibration, positive thinking, or are we kind of middling, you know, or are we negative vibration? And a lot of times we may be kind of sitting back and being middling, you know, kind of laissez-faire kind of emotion, which is not really serving. So being positive, being in a state of gratitude, being in a state of appreciation, being present, not lingering in regret or past thoughts or projecting into the future, but actually being present and appreciating what's in front of you, I think goes a long way in improving your heart health. Because a lot of times we're dragging ourselves down by the emotions that we're holding, and our hearts are being affected by that.
So could I say that the more I complain, the I'm actually hurting myself?
Yes, because complaining is not helping anything.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Jewel, could you also say, because I just love this topic, I love this topic. So could you also say though that there's people that over complain, but then there's people that won't speak up, and that's just as detrimental.
Yes, that's just as detrimental, because we live in a psychic universe, and so even though it's unsaid, it can be felt.
And sometimes that may be even worse.
Yes, yes, because you're holding it in, thinking you're having a face of something on the outside, but inside you're churning something else, and that's what the underside is, what's really running everything. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what we're holding consciously, but more importantly, subconsciously, really affects our hearts.
Dr. Joe, I had a question because what about the collective? You know, I know we've all been around that person and you can feel them, you know, whether it's high frequency or they're in a bad mood, you know, and they're kind of putting out that energy. Is that affecting us? And is there ways to maybe block that and not kind of take that on and manifest that ourselves?
Well, one of the things about energy is that like attracts like. And so if someone is in front of you who's negative, then they're actually showing you how you're holding a negative vibration. They're actually informing you of a emotion that you may be holding that needs to be resolved. So they're actually a gift to you because they're actually showing you what needs to be healed in you. So if you're around negative people who are judgmental all the time, then you really have to start looking at, well, where am I judging all the time? And whether or not is that serving you, and choosing to let that go, choosing to live differently, experience differently. So everybody, you know, your life is a service project, basically. Your life
That's right.
Your life is a classroom. So everything that's in front of you is informing you of how, and helping you towards your ascension, toward helping you towards your divinity. So
Ooh.
anything negative in front of you is there for you to heal, not to push away, not to lecture or push away, but actually to observe and say, okay, if it's in front of me, then and it bothers me that it's in front of me, especially if it bothers me that it's in front of me, then it's for me to heal.
Lisa, you had a question, looks like. You have to come off mute though.
Thank you. A wonderful, Jiwa, Dr. Jiwa. That was a great, I really enjoyed listening to you speak about all of the levels of the heart. And I was present at that conference when you gave your first presentation, and it was amazing. And one of the things that I took away from it was a process that you did at the time, and I've never forgotten it, with the coat hangers. And,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know if you would like to recall that or not, but it was so impactful because it gave me a visual and a way of talking about how our heart it interacts with our environment. Do you remember?
Oh, yes, yes. That's one of my favorite exercises. So what I use are coat hangers that you get from the dry cleaners that have the paper on, the all metal hangers. I take the paper off of them and I use them as dowsing rods or divining rods. And dowsing rods or divining rods are used to show a change of energy. And so the exercise that I demonstrate is I have someone stand probably like 10, 20 feet in front of me, and I ask them to think a neutral thought like the sky is blue. And I walk towards them with the hangers in my hands and the little hook parts facing outward. So the long part is I'm holding in my hands like this, very gently. And as I approach them, the hangers will open up once I encounter their field, the electromagnetic field that's generated by their heart. And so with a neutral thought, then I mark that place where it opened up. Then I have them think something that makes them feel really, really sad. And then I do it again. I walk towards them, and what usually happens, what's happened every time that I've done it so far, is that I walk past the neutral mark and I'm closer to them before the hangers open up, meaning that their electromagnetic field has contracted with a negative thought and is closer to their body. And then I do it again. I walk back and I ask them to think about something that makes them really, really happy. And I walk towards them, and before I can get to the neutral thought spot, the hangers will open up because now the field has expanded because of the positive thought. So positive thoughts are expansive, literally, for us. Our field expands and it contracts when we think negative thoughts. And that's happening constantly throughout the course of our day. Our field is contracting and expanding based on thoughts.
I got spirit bumps when you
That's
recounted.
beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing.
You're
That was-
welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Eva, that was beautiful, and I just have to show this.
Yeah.
That I have her book. I have the ebook and the hard copy.
And an audiobook is coming soon. I'm in talks with the studio now to record an audiobook that's been requested. Because even though it's a small book, it has a lot of material in it. It's a lot to chew on. I had great editors, and my mom was an English professor, and she used to tear my papers up all the way through junior high through college, so I know how to be succinct. So, yeah, but yeah, thank you. And Tanya was really my book buddy when I was writing this. She read through it and held my hand through the whole process, because I told you it took me 6 years. So.
It was wonderful. It was an honor and a privilege. Yay.
So I have one other question. It's the nerd question.
Okay. I didn't expect anything else from you.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
It
So that you guys can feel my energy.
My hanger blew open, wide open.
Oh yeah, and I hear them in the closet. They're clanking all around and everything.
That positivity is just blowing us away.
Danita's one of my hiking buddies, so a lot of these people, they know me pretty well, Danita. So you spoke of the sacred geometry and the numerology aspects of the heart. Could you just elaborate on that really quickly?
Okay, so the Vesica Pisces, which is the sign of the fish, is actually taken from two circles that are intersected. One circle meaning spirit and the other circle meaning matter. And so when we look at the Vesica Pisces, let me put this up here and hopefully you can see it. This part right here is the sign of the fish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that ratio is the square root of 3. Okay, so bear with me for a second while I try to center this diagram. This cube, the diagonal of a cube is also the square root of 3. Okay.
That's right.
And so when we look at the heart in photographs or on a radiograph, it looks like it's sitting at 45 degrees. But 45 degrees is only the square root of 2, which is a 2-dimensional. It's just height and width. But the heart is a 3-dimensional structure. And so it's sitting at that angle in a cube, but that's the square root of 3, the same dimension as the Vesica Pisces. And so the heart, that square root of 3 is really mind-blowing, because the heart sits like that it's roughly 36 degrees. And that is the measurement in sacred geometry of the Christ. The term the Christ predates Christianity, and it means that it's the intersection of spirit and matter. This symbol is a significant symbol in the sense that it is basically showing us where heaven meets earth, and that heaven meets earth in each and every one of us in the center of our chest.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the intersection of spirit and matter. Our heart is the seat of the Christ in us.
That's right.
The seat of divinity in us. And so there's a frieze on the ceiling of a dendera, which is a temple in Egypt. And the frieze itself has these, I know this is going to be hard to see, they have these bells right here that come out of Newt. She's giving birth to these rays, and these rays are the form of these bells. And my thesis is that these bells, let me back up. I go on to talk about the sacred geometry of the heart. And gentleman Frank Chester discovered this form called the chestahedron. Well, it's a septahedron. And it's a 7-sided form that when spun forms a bell, which is the same configuration of the bells that are rays of the bells that the rays that make the rays dendera.
Yes.
So my theory is that I'm going more in the book than I think. Okay, so let me say this. Our heart.
Compelling.
Okay, well, real quick. Our hearts start forming in an embryo at day 21, and the heart actually starts as an arterial tube, and then it twists at day 21, and it finishes 28 days later at day 49, and it's the spinning motion that makes this heart. My premise is that the energy coming down are these bells.
So,
She went on mute.
oh, you went on mute. I don't know what
She's
happened.
buffering.
Oh, she's buffering.
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. These bells are going around, whizzing around invisibly, looking for compatible matches of the experience that they want to have in life. They're looking for their proper mom and dad. And day 21, they enter the embryo and starts forming the heart. And they enter at this 36 degrees. They enter at square root of 3. And that's how the heart is formed. And that's where our soul and the seat of the Christ enter at day 21 into the embryo and start forming the heart. And that's where the Christ is seated.
So you're saying, I'm going to paraphrase. You're saying then at day 21, the consciousness of the soul enters the body through the heart.
Yes.
And then
as the heart.
As the heart.
Yes.
So that the 7-sided geometric shape, when that's spun, that's equivalent, that bell is equivalent to what you see in Dendra.
Yes.
Okay. And Dendra is important because Dendra is the temple of the
Heart.
Yeah, it's the temple of Hathor. Hathor is the goddess of love, earthly love on the earth plane and in our hearts.
So the significance of, there's a lot of 7s here. There's a significance of the 7-sided figure. There's a significance of the 49, which is 7 times 7. There's a significance of the 21, which is, or 7, which is, or excuse me, 21, which is 7 times 3.
Mm-hmm. The significance of the 4 times 7, the time that it takes for the heart to form, which is a lunar year, a lunar month. That's 28 days. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a lot of 4s, a lot of 7s, a lot of 7s.
So then we.
And the 4. Oh, I
we
was
could
going to say,
that
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. I was going to say, and the 49 collapses to a 13, which is the 12 around the 1.
Or also 4.
Well, I was specifically speaking about Jesus and the disciples. But anyway, go ahead.
Yes, it still all works. It still
Yes, all of it.
So exciting. I have my book too.
I have mine. It's in my bookcase.
Yeah. He's waiting for the audiobook. He's one of those who's waiting for the
No. Actually,
He's ready.
No, I have not read it, honestly. And actually, I have, I can make that my next book. I truly can. So it's right on time because I'm actually finishing up with a couple. I'm sorry?
I said, I'll be waiting for the phone calls and deep discussions.
Now, he can do that.
I know he can.
He
Yeah.
can do that.
So,
Maybe-
one of the things that I am in the process of doing, and we're getting ready to do week 7 of a 7-week book discussion. I decided to do a weekly book discussion, a chapter a week on the book. And we've been doing it every Thursday, and people have been asking me when we're going to do it again, and it's going to be in January. I'm going to have another book discussion, 7 weeks, and a chapter a week. And I think it's been really interesting, insightful to see how other people see the book. You know, as an author, you have no idea. But getting the feedback from it and the insights that people are getting from it's really, really something.
Well, you know, in my meditation group, we've been reading books. And so, you know, starting the new year, that might be something we could join you with. And I
Oh,
could,
that'd be cool.
yeah, and see if folks want to do that. But that would be really cool. I think that would be. So yeah, let's plan on that. Let's plan on that.
Cool. Yay.
Okay. All right. So guess who's next?
Mhm.
Woohoo!
Oh, could you put the information in the
Chat box, please.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start out with, I will put the, I'm not going to do my slideshow. And once we're done, if anyone wants a copy of it, you can put your email in the chat and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Why not?
Well, because here's the thing. My topic is metaphor. And I've been, like the creation process, through this whole period of time, refining and looking at and finding insights and things of that nature. And I want to talk about how I came to that in the context of my book. So I'm going to show you, it's going to be a little hard to see because of the glare. But this is my book, which is available on Amazon right now as an ebook, and it's called Prince of the Far Isles. And just for myself, I've always loved to read. I've always loved stories, and I've always been captivated by what I called then mythology. And even as a child, I would go to the library. I mean, that's when you had to hold books, okay? And I would sit in the library and read about all sorts of cultures. And I unfortunately wasn't exposed to much in African culture until high school. But my basic premise was, you know, Chinese, Japanese, Nordic, all these different cultures and different ways of looking at how the world was formed. And so what was important to me was I fell in love with all these stories. I love telling stories, and Lisa was the main person that I shared these stories with. My older brothers and sisters, I used to, in addition to being a writer, I'm also an artist. I would illustrate their book reports. And I was always fascinated with all these different stories, including, of course, the Bible was my main one about how the world came to be. And this book became my mission, so to speak, because I learned that mythology is actually kind of like a cover for metaphor, and metaphor is a representation of something that has a deeper meaning. And I've always maintained that there's only one story to tell. No matter how many ways we tell it, how many people tell it, there's like 8 billion people on the planet, and there's only one story, and it's a salvation story. It's a story of the Son of God coming into the earth plane, walking through hell, and going back to heaven. That's it. We can say it as drama, we can say it as comedy, we can make it children's books, we can make it fairy tales, we can make it whatever we want, but that's what it is. And through my life, I had a lot of stories that I've written, The Prince of the Far Isles came about actually from a story that I started writing in college, high school and college. And interestingly enough, up until through college, I always thought the protagonist was always female. And this was supposed to be the most powerful magician on the planet, and that hero's journey for her. But I never finished it. I would always go through different processes with it. And when I began the journey into the real teachings of metaphor, as above, so below, and the deeper meanings beyond what we're told, all of these stories, even the fairy tales, which if you look at the original ones, they weren't happy stories or happy endings. They were cautionary tales about the choices that we make. And I began to understand, like Dr. Fuqua has pointed out, the planet Earth is a place of choice. We just come here to choose, and that's it. Now, we can make all kinds of judgments about it, but it's just a place to choose. And so with this protagonist, who I thought was a magician, I had an epiphany one day as I pulled out some more writing. I'm going through it again, looking at it again, and this concept came to me very clearly. It said, what if they're not a magician? My brain went like this, and it's like, what could be more powerful? Magic is actually nothing. It's illusion. It's a misidentification that the Son of Man has about themselves. It's like all of us have what they call an authority problem, but if we misidentify ourselves and choose, we can choose pain, or we can choose pleasure, or we can recognize that none of that's important and that there's only joy. So when the concept came to me, it's like, well, what if the most powerful person on the planet was a creator? It was like that. And then the antagonist became the magician. The antagonist became like, let me give this example. So in metaphor, if we go esoteric, exoteric, the outer teaching about a magician is somebody that does spells and does all this other stuff. And I don't deal with that in my book. It's based on science fiction. It's not based on things that are not possible. That's why it's actually comes under the heading of speculative fiction, which is fiction that could be possible. So the magicians wield radiation, and they use it destructively. And the creators channel the energy. Instead of trying to control and manipulate, they allow it to flow through them, and they have a different experience of life. And so using those metaphors, the magician just simply represents the idea and the thought that separates me from my brother or from mankind, that makes me say, you have the problem, not me. And the creator is the one that recognizes that all is one, all things happen for my good, and everything is part of the plan, part of the process, part of the learning, and nothing ever went wrong. And so for the reader, they get to go with my protagonist, who's the Prince of the Far Isles, and on his journey, which is where he's classified as what they call the sympathetic villain. The sympathetic villain is not someone who's just bad, Darth Vader, horrible, and all this other business, but someone who simply makes choices that takes him down path A or path B. And so the reader gets to go with him and see all the choices that he makes that leads him to, I don't know if you saw the synopsis, but basically he's separated from his family. All stories are the same. So heaven is the normal world. Heaven is where you start. So even if you were abused, or somebody did something horrible to you, or you did whatever, however it comes out, if you were adopted or whatever happens, that's your normal world. And then you step away from the normal world and go into the extraordinary world, which is the hero's journey, and part of what you have to go through, your goal to get back to heaven again, or the happy ending or the ending that satisfies as many ends as required. So the in my story, the person just simply gets to choose. And the thing that I love about it is that the creators and the co-creators and the creators in the story, when they identify themselves properly, you are unlimited. You can do anything. It could be characterized as magic, but magic in a general term is just science that hasn't been explained yet, right? So when you can see how you can be unlimited in power, abundance, and things of that nature, then you can see how, like, I'm not gonna read in my author's notes that I have in the book, it basically explains how instead of communicating with phones, right? Every tool that we have, basically my premise is, I have a hypothesis as well, that mankind de-evolved through the use of tools. Because we began to use tools instead of the natural tool of the mind, the creative mind, that is limitless. Thoughts, everything that comes out from the mind is unlimited. But when we bring a tool into it, we say, well, we can only talk through phones. We can only get from point A to point B using cars. We can only communicate through laptops. When we do that, we essentially bind creation. We limit it and we say how far it can go. Because now we have to say, it takes 2 hours to get from Bakersfield to LAX. Instead of saying that if I were able to accept that I am a light particle, right? That I operate on the unlimited pulse and wave that you see in physics, then I can be anywhere at any point in time that I choose. I wouldn't need a plane, wouldn't need a car, wouldn't need all these things. And part of the hypothesis is that your hand and your fingerprints, this is your blueprint for unlimited power. It has nothing to do with apes and things like that. Everything is simply a reminder that there is nothing you cannot do. But in order to give this story, I did it in such a way that it looks like a regular story. So anyone could pick it up and read it and go, oh, wow, that was great. Or those that have been initiated into the deeper teachings will read the story and go, whoa, wait a minute, I see, oh yeah, that's this, that's that, that's that. And they'll see all of the deeper things that point the way to your inheritance as a creator, as a co-creator. So once I was able to do that, like I said, the book exploded and it went from, I don't know, 50 to 100 pages. And now the book is, in the ebook form, is 433 pages. And I'm working on the print version through Ingram Spark, which is a print-on-demand publisher. And right now it's looking like 488 pages. But the point that I'm making is that it's unlimited. And the mission that has come out from this book, because this is actually not, I started out with a trilogy, right? And now I have 9 books. And this is like the prequel to everything. It's like listening and allowing and getting out of the way just gave the place for this to just like explode. And so I have a premise that if you are created, you are creative. It's one of the things I hear a lot when I'm talking to people about my book or my work, is they say, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. The I wish, that's the ego. That's the limitation. That is where you have set the boundaries on the planet and what you can do on it. Whereas if you recognize that, if we really believe that as above, so below, It's impossible for you to not be creative. You have to be creative. And anything that you set your mind to, you can absolutely do. And that's basically told. The background of the stories, it happens 2 million years ago. And I did that so that I can say whatever I want. That people can't say, oh, this only happened in the Jurassic Park era. No, none of that. It happened 2 million years ago. The premise is that there were people all over the planet that were called co-creators, and they're responsible for all the civilizations, the monuments, and all of the teachings that we have today. But just like the dinosaurs, one day they vanished. And this is a story of what happened.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes.
And it's a reminder, and it's a reminder that we can go back to that whenever we say so.
Thank you, Tanya.
Without even reading the book, I want to change my thought pattern. Just hearing you describe it, I think it's going to be powerful. I can't wait to pick it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing.
So Tanya, could you put in the chat area how you can buy your book?
Yes.
Okay.
I will put the link to Amazon on the book. Does anyone have any questions for me?
No, I just think it was very amazing. It was just beautiful.
I'm very passionate about it. Can you tell?
Yes, yes, yes.
It's kind of like, I'm going to say one more thing before I enter this in the chat. Some of my conversations that I have with people, I love to give the analogy of the Olympics, right? Back to the premise of our de-evolving by the use of tools. My theory is we didn't go from 0 to 10%. We went from 90 to 10 because we stepped away from our true inheritance. So I use the Olympics by saying that you have the gold, the silver, and the bronze, right? When people compete for this, they don't have to you don't have to run, your time doesn't have to be 2 minutes faster than the other person. You only have to be a quarter of a second faster to go from the bronze to the silver to the gold. And so my premise and challenge is that now they say that we have access to 10% of the total knowledge that is available to us, and that we may only need 10.5. We don't have to jump to 20 or to 100. We only need 10.5 to access the quantum field and create the universes that we were designed to. There's a gentleman, David Bohm, who talks about in his quantum theory, he says that people look at the stars, you look at the planets and everything, and people think that those are planetary bodies floating in space. He said, what if the space is what is solid and the planet is the emptiness? Then you can see there's so much more abundance that we could possibly imagine. And if we mirror that, because when we say as above, so below, people usually don't go any further than the sky. But if you look out past that and look out past this universe, then you see that what you're supposed to mirror is something infinite, something that has no end. And when you look at that, it's like, how can we possibly see ourselves as having boundaries if this is what we're mirroring? So that's what I'm passionate about.
And this is so powerful for me because that's just the kind of conversation that the people in my life that a lot of us are having. So that we're creators and that, that we create our world, we create this, even adding what Dr. Jewel said, everything is something that we're creating. And so we get to decide how big what it looks like. And if you don't like what you're creating, look at what you have and start recreating.
That's right.
Oh, Mark, was I supposed to raise my hand in the chat?
No, not at all.
Okay. So
thank you so much, Tanya. In speaking about the metaphor and the creative process, which character in the book of The Prince of the Far Isles do you think most closely mirrors that process of understanding their unlimited potential?
Okay, okay. See, now she's trying to get me to tell some stuff. Now I'm keeping some spoil. I'm not giving any spoilers out. I'll say this: just the way that the magicians in the story represent the ego and the Setian energy and the lower nature, the co-creators represent the higher self and the ability to ascend. And all of mankind, of course, is Horus, the chooser. And all we're doing simply, the characters are simply choosing between hell and heaven. And the character that, it's at least in those old books, the character is Athitosa, is a character in the book who most closely represents your unlimited nature. And that is simply because she never takes her focus off what would be considered the throne. She never takes her eyes off the throne. She is always focused on God in the abundance. So that can never be challenged. And that's a metaphor, again, to what Tressa was saying. Tressa was saying that is a choice that we can make. And that there is no reason to look at anyone and say that there's something they can do that I cannot. Yeah.
Thank you.
You started talking about identification.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit, please? What do you mean by that?
Oh, here it is. Identification. In the story, I'm going to go back to the story, The Prince of the Far Isles. So to give a little bit of a synopsis, it's about two cousins they're both princes, and they were raised like brothers, and they were separated by tragedy and treason. One cousin is going to become the High King of the Western Hemisphere. So he's basically going to be like the highest level of government on the earth. And the other one is condemned to death 2 days before his 12th birthday. And the choice that this character is given throughout the book is he going to identify with his story, or is he going to identify with his true identity? And all through the book, he has each and every opportunity to choose the fullness, I'll say, the fullness. And what he's unaware of until later on in the book is that there's a very powerful man who represents, Set is the ruler of the world. So there's a man who has that position, and he's looking for him. He's trying to find him because he knows his birthright as the first cousin to the most powerful man in the world makes him a prime candidate for exploitation, to be used to plunge the entire world into war. So he has a choice at any point in time to identify as the fullness. But every time he compromises and chooses the nothingness, it takes him further and further and further and further into the darkness. So identification is a very, very, very important part of the book. As a matter of fact, it's really the whole book is who do I say I am? Even, don't get me started. I even got a chapter in there that says, a subchapter that says, who do I say I am? So, yeah.
So I know what you mean, but
right.
Okay, so I'm trying to draw this out of you because some people may not know exactly what you mean by that. So what are the choices between?
The choices are let me just close this. Okay. So his driving force, like I said, when you step away from heaven and you're walking through hell in the earth plane, his choice is, his desire is that he wants to go home. What he's mistaken about is what home is. So the reader will see a story where there's a young man who has lost his inheritance, and all he wants is to regain it. And he goes through all these adventures to try to gain his identity. And that's what they're going to see. And they're going to see how all of his choices lead him to all of these disastrous events, that happen. And the initiated, so to speak, will see all the places where he's offered an alternative to that. But it shows up differently. It shows up as a different, it shows up to someone just reading the book, lifestyle choices, right? So here's a perfect example. Thank you. Black Panther. So you have Michael B. Jordan, whose father, it's a good thing this book was written a long time ago, because I'm telling you, his father was the brother of the king, right? He's the brother of the king. And so through his mistakes and choices, his son ends up in a foreign country and he doesn't know who he is, right? He had a choice. The story would have been totally different if he hadn't decided to become a murderer and go back and try to kill everybody because of what he lost. So that's a way to look at all the metaphors in Black Panther. It's like it's the same story. It's the choices that determine our experience. Did that answer the question? I hope.
Looking at the choices, sometimes the choices, like you mentioned earlier, just not being boundaryless, and knowing that you have that unlimited potential and unlimited abundance is sometimes just the choice, knowing that, correct?
Yes, and to see through your own deceptions, because you're going to be offered things that look really, really good, right? You're going to be offered things where you're going to say, well, what's wrong with, hey, this is who I am, this is why not? But you're not going to know unless and that's where we have to understand that nothing goes wrong, actually, in the universe. Nothing goes wrong. Every decision he makes, he's learning from. All things are lessons God would have me learn. So everything he does is just something he's going to learn. The reader will read it and you'll make your own, you'll either relate to his story, or maybe you'll judge his story, or maybe you'll just be entertained by it. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot to glean from it, so to speak.
So what I saw was, what I thought about is when you talked about the young lady, I don't remember her name, but she kept her eye on the throne. And so the way she continued in my mind to make the correct decision is every decision was made based on, will it keep me on the throne? Will it keep me like in the direction that I want to go? Otherwise, that was how she made her decisions. Like she knew inherently within her already what her decision was, so she can get sidetracked. And I think sometimes when we don't really have it solid within us, we can kind of be swayed. But because she was solid, she always based everything upon that one thing: is it going to keep me on the throne, or whatever everybody's thing is, will it keep me in that space? And then so that's kind of what I heard you say about her. That's what
she is she's an example. She's an example of a choice of what you can experience. It's kind of like that goes back to what Jiwa was saying about the Christ as a concept existed before Christianity. So that's another thing that's explored, is that she's just an example. So you can choose to do what she's doing and live the way she's living.
Right.
And that choice is offered to him. Or you can choose something else and see where that takes you. Yeah. So, yeah, she's an example. I'll say, like the Christ. She's an example. And she's pretty amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, all of us are the examples of our choices.
I've got some, I have metaphors for angels, which are messengers. I have metaphors for what I call the star children. I have, I'm telling you, it just looks like a little bitty, regular story on the surface, but even as you're reading it, you will see that there's a lot more to it. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot to it. Any more questions? Read the book, read the book.
Buy the book, buy the book.
Buy the book, buy the book. I'm gonna give one more. Let me see, where is it? If I can find it. Ugh. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah, there we go. I have magicians represent the ego and illusions of the world. The magician himself, which is a character in the book, represents the Setian energy embodiment. Creators and co-creators represent the higher self, or Horus the elder and Horus the younger, depending on where you're standing and what you're doing. Aphytosa represents the Holy Spirit. Mankind represents the chooser, or Horus moving through the earth plane. The star children represent the angels and the Palladian energy, the energy of the Pleiades. Izar, the twins. Izar is actually a star in another galaxy. It's very interesting. It's called the twins. They're called the twin stars. And that represents the fallen or Lucifer energy, similar to Set or the fallen angels who follow him. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, and kings and queens are they're just universal storytelling elements that anybody can relate to. And that's one of the main reasons why I use them. Yeah.
Also, do you use them because they're linked to divinity? Kings and queens are known or to be what's the word? Have a sacred pact with the divine, and that's why you.
It does. It's all through the Bible. Yeah. And the thing that's really cool about it is that when we're misidentified, we think that kings and queens, celebrities, and all those other people are something that we can't be or can't aspire to. That is something that, and actually, it's actually a good metaphor that they say you have to be born into a certain family to become a prince, a princess, a king, or a queen. But the reality is we are all born into divinity.
Yeah.
We all, like you were saying, the heart seed, the heart atom seed, the chakra right there, that is our divinity. And that is all of our inheritance. It's just if we don't believe it, we can't experience it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. You had to leave.
Yes, thank you, Bianca.
Oh, love you, Bianca. Thank you. Yeah. That's it. Hi, Joyce Lewis.
Tanya Marie, I love you.
I love you, girl. You know I'm thrilled that you're here too.
So do we have any questions for the any of the authors?
I just wanted to say thank you to all of the ladies. I thanked Mark earlier for holding such an insightful, entertaining, and fascinating panel. And I enjoyed the play, and it was just rich and wonderful. So thank you, ladies, for all of your hard work, for pulling all of that beautiful information from the invisible and making it available to us in the visible through your writings and your sharing. Deep appreciation to you, Mark, for hosting it. Thank you.
You know, I'm humbled and inspired by the authors that we have. You know, thank everybody for showing up, and man, I can't express my appreciation enough for all of you. You know, to participate in the way that you are.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for asking.
Well, I'm definitely taking a lot from just this, and I can't wait to grab the books. And I appreciate you, Mark, and I appreciate you ladies. This has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to getting books as well.
I'm definitely adding to my library.
Well, good. So what will happen is that we did record this, most of it. And as soon as it's available, I will post it in our group so that everyone can, the authors or whoever wants to download it, and you can even create a, you know, a YouTube video out of it or whatever, and then post it to your websites or your Facebook pages or whatever. So what you'll see, it will be a link to, I think, my Google Drive, which will have the actual both the audio and the video available. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all. So as the
Thank you, Deirdre.
my son's daycare provider used to always say to my son and all the other kids, be good, be nice, and don't fight. You know, when you're like 3 years old, you can remember. So
Good
anyway.
advice.
Fitting for right now anyway, so I'll take it.
Right, that's right. That's right.
Anyway, so yeah, so until next month, I don't know what we're doing next month yet, but we'll figure it out, and hope you guys, I'll see you guys back next month too, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me
Thank
know.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank